10 games, an all-SEC schedule. Don't miss a minute of the action. The Vols play here on KZ 106.
Hey, Scott Chase at KZ 106 with Bob Kesling and Dr. The Bob Kesling Call. We went into this past weekend's square off with high expectations. Our expectations, I guess, and boy, that first half was that second half.
Yeah, it was the tale of two halves, wasn't it? Tennessee stayed toe-to-toe with Georgia, had the lead at halftime. Second half, the mistakes, the turnovers, just you can't do it against really good teams, and that's what Tennessee did. And once Georgia got control of the game, they never let Tennessee back in it. I think everybody was kind of surprised with Tennessee's inability to run the football. And so give Georgia some credit. I mean, it wasn't Tennessee didn't play very well, but Georgia played extremely well. So, a lot of times in those situations, tip your hat to the opponent and let's move on and now get ready for Kentucky.
Yeah, it's been a tough road to hoe for the Vols in the second half against Georgia recently. For some reason, they've just not been able to hold on to those games. Is that something that coaches oftentimes say, that it's teams learning how to win, learning how to close out games, learning how to play in the second half? Is that something this team is still definitely working on?
Yeah, I think, but they've made progress in that area. You don't win 8 games in a row without learning a little bit about how to win. Again, Georgia's done this to everybody the last 3 years. I mean, they've won the SEC East, so it's not like this is something that Georgia just jumped up and beat Tennessee. I mean, that's one of those things. Georgia has been really good, and they are really good. And so you've got to lift your level of play up to meet theirs, and Tennessee just didn't do that on Saturday. So now you go after a Kentucky team that's coming off a win. They could be, if the scenarios played out right, they could be 3-0. They lost Ole Miss in overtime. They missed an extra point in the overtime period. They played Auburn really well. They got a bad break at in the game that kind of helped Auburn win it. But it's a team that had 6 interceptions against Mississippi State. So they pride themselves on defense and running the football. And so Tennessee's going to have to stop the run and figure out a way to score points and move the ball in Kentucky.
Any adjustments do you feel like the Vols will make for this coming weekend?
Probably attitude more than anything. I think that Coach Pruitt and the staff are still convinced they've got a good football team and that they've got good players. They just didn't play well Saturday for whatever reason. They just didn't play well. And, I think everybody thinks the offensive line is still really good, but they've got to play like it. Everybody thinks that Tennessee's running backs are still really good, but they've got to play really good in SEC games, and they just didn't do it on Saturday. So you hope it's one of those games you just kind of turn the page, you learn from it, and you move forward. But, Kentucky hasn't won at Neyland Stadium since 1984. They're well aware of that. And so it's one of those rivalries that Tennessee has kind of had the upper hand. And the Kentucky players know that. Everybody up there in the bluegrass keeps telling them they can't beat Tennessee and they can't do this. Last year, that it took a goal line stand for Tennessee to beat them up in Lexington. So this will be a very motivated Kentucky team. When the season started, people picked this Kentucky team to win 7 or 8 games. So it's a talented team, and it's a team that's very physical, and they pride themselves on playing really good defense and running the football. Their quarterback, Wilson, is a guy that would rather run it than throw it. So you've got to stop him. And that, of course, that always makes it tough on a defense when you got a running quarterback. So it'll be a challenge Saturday. There's no question about that. And Tennessee better be ready to play.
All right. As you've been prepping for this weekend's game, have you ever seen a game like you saw last weekend from Kentucky? Do you just throw that tape out if you're Jeremy Pruitt? The team, 6 interceptions, but barely 150 yards total offense. It just a game that didn't seem to work out the way that it's supposed to.
Well, if the other team throws it 70 times, you've got a pretty good chance of picking 6 of them off. And, and apparently when they threw them right at the Kentucky guys, you got a pretty good chance of prevailing in that situation. So, Mississippi State, they're just a pass-happy team, and Kentucky did a really nice job of just rushing 3 and then dropping 8, and Mississippi State just wasn't able to solve that. But it'll be a different look this week. It'll be different because of the fact that Tennessee's going to want to run the football. And so Kentucky's going to have a bunch of guys massed at the line of scrimmage to try and stop them. So I think it's going to be a very physical game. I think it's going to be a really tough game, and I think it'll be a close game, low-scoring game. So it's one of those things you better figure out a way to win it in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's a Kentucky defense that struggled a lot this season, despite the fact the 6 interceptions last week. So it looks like the Vols would probably be able to take advantage of some of that going into this weekend.
Well, you thought, well, Ole Miss ran up and down the field against them, and you thought, well, man, their Kentucky defense must not be very good. And then you looked at Ole Miss was running up and down the field against Alabama, and they put a lot of points up against Alabama. So that maybe makes that Kentucky defense look a little bit better because Ole Miss, I think, is really good on offense. So, with this season and with all the different situations and the disruptions and all those things, every game, every week takes off on a different tangent. So it's not like I don't think you got a book. Okay, this is how it's going to play out. I think every game is going to be different. I think every game is going to be a challenge. And I think every game is going to have a whole different feel to it than it did the week before. And those of us that sit here and try and figure things out on, during the week, usually doesn't play out like we think it's going to play anyway. So let's just go play it.
I think everybody's thankful to have some football, period.
Yeah, I think that's true. There's some problems, though. Florida is shut down, and the Vanderbilt game against Missouri has been postponed. So you're the point where you think that you got smooth sailing ahead to finish the season, and all of a sudden you run into an iceberg, or you have a problem. So everybody still has to do what they're supposed to do, and that's the protocols, and that's getting tested and staying away from big groups, and don't go to parties and all those type things. So we're not quite out of this yet. And that's the one thing about it, that you hope that we can go ahead and play the season without any hiccups, but you better be prepared for those hiccups, because they could be coming at any time. You just don't know. So we hope to get through the season, but we're kind of like we were back in March. You're taking this thing day by day, week by week, to see how you get through it.
Yeah, and if anything, the professional team over in Nashville has shown us that.
Mm-hmm.
The question of the week, though, real quick: how many fans were actually in the Texas A&M Stadium? How many were in Kyle Field this week? It's anywhere from 75,000 to 20,000.
I think they said a COVID record for attendance on Saturday. So, all the cadets were there, and I was shocked at how many people were there. Now, again, let's go back. That each state is different, and each county is different, and so apparently in Texas they've kind of eased up on some of the restrictions, and Texas A&M has taken advantage of that. That doesn't mean that Knox County is going to relax things for Tennessee, or that they're going to relax things in Tuscaloosa County or whatever. Again, you have to go by what the medical folks and the experts are telling you, and just do what you can to make sure you play football. But there were a lot of folks there. There were a lot of folks at Georgia for the Auburn game. There weren't that many there for Saturday for the Tennessee game, but there were a bunch there for that Auburn game.
Yep.
There's a pretty big difference. We're right here on the state line. I can tell you there's a pretty dramatic difference between the way these two states are handling Tennessee and Georgia. There's certainly it's different between.
Well, yeah, and it's different county by county. So it's not like there's a blanket, checklist of things that you can do, because each county is taking it differently. Each state's taking it differently because the outbreaks are different. So luckily around Knox County, the numbers are down. The numbers look good. And so that's an encouraging thing. But I still have not heard any indication that they're going to up the number of people in Neyland Stadium anytime soon.
Those are good tickets to get if you can get them, aren't they?
Wow. Yeah. It's probably a harder ticket than most people thought it was going to be. That's for sure.
Bob, thanks for your time. Thanks for your expertise. We appreciate your call each and every week. Go Vols for this weekend, okay?
Okay, guys. Let's go. Beat the Cats. Thanks.